November 2nd, 1942. Liverpool docks, England. The rain is relentless. A cold grey curtain over the harbour. Waves slap against steel hulls as merchant ships load crates of food, fuel, and ammunition bound for the desperate convoys crossing the North Atlantic. The docks smell of oil, salt, and fear. In the workshop of His Majesty's Dockyard, Liverpool, a mechanic named Albert Burt Chalmers wipes his hands on a rag and mutters to himself. He's been repairing a prototype depth-charge launcher, another attempt by the Admiralty to stop the German U-boats that have been slaughtering Allied ships in the Atlantic. Behind him, two engineers argue over schematics. The charges are too slow to detonate, one says. By the time they sink, the submarine's already gone. Bert sighs. Aye, and we can't see a bloody thing once we drop 'em either. The sonar goes deaf. He taps the metal housing of the launcher with his wrench. It's an ungainly thing, a cluster of tubes welded together, designed to fire small bombs ahead of the ship instead of behind it. Looks like a bleeding porcupine, he mutters. That porcupine, officially the Mark 10 anti-submarine projector, is supposed to be the Royal Navy's next secret weapon. But so far, it's a disappointment. The bombs detonate too early or too late, and the gunners can't tell if they've hit anything. Chalmers leans closer, tightening a bolt on one of the firing tubes. A small spark jumps as he adjusts the trigger switch. The modified firing pin clicks into place with an audible snap. "Careful, Bert," one of the engineers calls. "You'll blow the whole dock sky high." Bert grins. "Don't worry, sir. Just giving it a gentler touch." That gentler touch, the repositioning of a contact fuse designed for direct impact instead of timed explosion, will prove to be one of the most consequential accidents of the war. At that very moment, hundreds of miles to the west, a convoy under attack is fighting for its life. Convoy SC-107, North Atlantic. The night is black and furious. German U-boats move like wolves beneath the surface, striking from all sides. Torpedoes tear into cargo ships. Flames leap across the water. The convoy escorts drop depth charges. Great, thunderous blasts that shake the ocean, but hit nothing. "Lost contact," a sonar operator shouts. "Drop another pattern." Depth setting 300 feet. Fire. Each detonation sends shockwaves through the ship, killing sonar contact for precious minutes. When the sound returns, the enemy is gone. Back in Liverpool, Chalmers stares at the launcher, unaware that his minor adjustment will soon rewrite this story. When the test begins days later in the Irish Sea, the modified weapon fires a spread of 24 small bombs in a perfect arc ahead of the ship, each one armed with his newly adjusted contact fuse. One of the officers watching frowns. "They don't detonate," he says. Chalmers grins. "That's the point, sir. They only go off when they hit something." When the sonar operator calls out, "Target destroyed, confirmed by contact blast," the deck erupts in cheers. The Hedgehog, as the sailors will nickname it for its quill-like barrels, has just proven itself in combat trials, and soon it will turn the Atlantic into a graveyard for U-boats. January 8th, 1943, Irish Sea, aboard HMS Westcott. The wind screams across the deck as waves crash over the bow. The destroyer HMS Westcott cuts through the churning grey sea, its engines groaning against the swell. On the forward deck sits the Royal Navy's newest curiosity, a squat, ugly cluster of 24 narrow barrels welded in a half circle. Painted hastily in grey, it looks more like a plumber's nightmare than a weapon of war. Chief Engineer Albert Burt Chalmers watches nervously as a team of sailors loads the tubes with spigot bombs. Each bomb is small, barely 7 inches in diameter, 65 pounds in weight, with a blunt nose and a fuse that looks almost primitive. His fuse. The captain, Commander Ernest Leach, approaches, hands clasped behind his back. "Chalmers, if this contraption doesn't work, the Admiralty will have both our heads." Bert grins despite the cold. "Aye, sir. Then let's hope she hits like a hammer." The test begins. Below decks, the sonar operator tracks a dummy target, a towed submersible dragging beneath the waves. "Contact bearing 090 degrees. Range 800 yards, he calls. Very well, Leach says. Bring us to attack speed. Ready, Hedgehog. Chalmers watches the gunners arm the device. The barrels elevate slightly. Precise, mechanical, almost delicate. Fire! The sound isn't the deep thunder of a depth charge. Instead, a whoosh fills the air as 24 projectiles arc gracefully forward, their white trails vanishing into the mist. They strike the sea in a staggered pattern, splash, 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 before sinking silently. Seconds tick by. Nothing. Still no detonation, a sailor mutters. Wait for it, Chalmers says. Then, boom! A sharp, distinct blast rolls through the hull. Then another, and another. The bridge erupts in noise as the sonar operator shouts. Direct hit on target. Multiple contact explosions at depth 50 feet. Leach's face breaks into a grin. By God, it works. Chalmers exhales, clutching the rail. Told you she'd hit like a hammer. What makes the weapon so extraordinary isn't just its accuracy, it's what it doesn't do. Unlike depth charges, which detonate by pressure and blind the ship's sonar with shockwaves, the Hedgehog bombs only explode on impact. The ship can keep tracking the enemy in real time, guiding follow-up shots within seconds. That same week, a U-boat prowling the North Atlantic learns the hard way. January 15th, 1943. Convoy HX 222, 400 miles west of Ireland. Night. Fog. The convoy plows through icy seas under blackout conditions. A faint blip appears on HMS Westcott's sonar. A U-boat closing fast. Bearing 135 degrees. 600 yards, the operator calls. Ready, Hedgehog, Leach orders. The destroyer swings to port, aligning the target. The crew braces. Fire! The Hedgehog roars. 24 projectiles streak out, their arcs visible only in moonlight. They vanish into the dark sea, and seconds later, a single explosion tears upward through the waves. Sonar confirms it instantly. Contact lost. Submarine destroyed. No geysers, no guesswork. Just a clean, precise kill. For the first time, the Royal Navy has a weapon that hunts, not hopes. In the days that follow, the reports spread like wildfire through the fleet. Crews start calling it the Hedgehog's Kiss. Silent, sudden, and final. By spring, ships across the Atlantic begin installing the new projector. The U-boats that once ruled the ocean's depths now find themselves stalked by a weapon born from a mechanic's mistake, a simple adjustment that gave the hunters sharper teeth. And deep beneath the waves, the wolves begin to realize that the prey can now strike back. May 1943. North Atlantic, 0200 hours. The sea is a black mirror, broken only by the faint silhouettes of merchant ships moving westward in tight formation. Their decks glow dimly under hooded lamps. Somewhere beneath them, death waits. U-boat Wolfpack Eisbär, prowling the icy depths. Aboard U-2P1, Kapitan Leutnant Hans Hartwig Treuer peers through his periscope. Range, 2 kilometers. Freighter dead ahead. His breath fogs the glass as he watches the target glide into the crosshairs. Torpedo Eins! Loss! A white streak flashes beneath the waves. Moments later, an explosion splits the night. Flames climb skyward, silhouetting the convoy. German cheers fill the control room. Troja grins. Another English pig to the bottom. But the celebration doesn't last. Sonar pings echo through the hull. Sharp, fast, rhythmic. Destroyer approaching! A crewman shouts. Troja orders. Dive! Crash dive! The U-boat plunges. Depth 100 meters. 120, 150. The lights dim. The hull groans. The men listen for the familiar pattern. The heavy thud of depth charges. The long pause before the crushing blast. But what comes instead is different. A faint whoosh echoes from above. Several in quick succession. Then silence. Troja frowns. What was that? A second later, the ocean erupts. 24 explosions detonate in rapid sequence, each sharper, closer, more violent than any depth charge. The U-boat lurches violently, lights flickering. Rivets pop from the pressure. "Hit amidships!" an engineer screams. "Forward ballast tank breached!" Troja grabs the periscope handles as water sprays across the command deck. What kind of weapon was that? Above, the HMS Duncan circles like a shark. Her sonar operator calls out, "Multiple direct hits confirmed. Target breaking up." The captain nods grimly. "Mark position, another one down." The Hedgehog has struck again. By mid-1943, this accidental invention, Chalmers' contact-fused spigot mortar, is spreading through every Allied fleet. Destroyers, corvettes, and frigates now carry the strange, bristling weapon on their bows. Crews learn to fire, reload, and fire again in minutes. The U-boats, once untouchable, are suddenly dying in record numbers. In Admiral Karl Dönitz's headquarters in Lorient, France, the reports pile up. U-222, missing. U-608, sunk. All hands lost. U-226, destroyed. Contact weapon confirmed. Dönitz slams his fist onto the map table. "This is impossible. Depth charges leave no sonar trace. How are they finding us so quickly?" A shaken staff officer replies, "The English, they're using some new forward-firing weapon. It strikes before we can dive." Meanwhile, on the other side of the channel, the British Admiralty's anti-submarine division holds a quiet celebration. Commander Charles Goodeve, head of the Royal Navy's research team, raises a glass to his engineers. "Gentlemen," he says, "for the first time, the hunters are the hunted." Word spreads among sailors. Convoy escorts begin painting small white hedgehog symbols on their bridge wings for every U-boat destroyed. A grim tally of payback for years of fear. Back in Liverpool, Albert Chalmers receives a telegram from the Admiralty. It's only one sentence long. "Your modification has saved the Atlantic." He reads it twice, then folds it into his pocket. "Just did what needed doing," he mutters. By the summer of 1943, the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic has turned. U-boat losses reach catastrophic levels. 41 submarines destroyed in May alone. For the first time in the war, convoys cross the ocean without bleeding ships into the deep. And in the cold, black beneath those waves, the once proud wolf packs begin to vanish. Hunted not by chance, but by design. August 1943, North Atlantic. The ocean is calm, deceptively peaceful. Aboard HMS Duncan, the crew gathers on deck, staring down at the oil slick spreading across the surface. Bubbles rise, then debris, a shattered periscope, a torn life vest marked U-boat 639. The captain removes his cap. "Another wolf gone quiet," he murmurs. The crew doesn't cheer. After 4 years of slaughter, they know what this means. Not just another kill, but the end of an era. Below decks, the sonar operator keeps listening. The once familiar echoes, the haunting ping-ping of German submarines, are gone. Silence. The Hedgehog, the accident that wasn't supposed to work, has done what no fleet or strategy could. It's taken the teeth out of Hitler's wolf packs. Back in Liverpool, Albert Bert Chalmers stands outside the workshop where it all began. The same rainy dockyards, the same smell of rust and salt, but now ships come home full, not burning, not bleeding. A naval officer approaches him with a clipboard. "They're asking for new mounts, sir. Americans want to fit the Hedgehog on their destroyer escorts." Chalmers chuckles. "Tell them it's not fancy, but it gets the job done." He looks out over the harbour, watching Liberty ships glide in, their decks stacked with tanks, food, and mail from home. Every one of them owes its safe passage to a row of steel tubes and a contact fuse barely thicker than a coin. The engineer who designed it never set foot on a destroyer. He never heard a sonar ping or saw the flash of a submarine exploding beneath the waves. Yet his small adjustment, that single misaligned trigger, changed the fate of the Atlantic. November 1943. German Naval Headquarters, Lorient, France. The once bustling pens are silent. Half the berths are empty. Admiral Dönitz stares at the casualty reports, jaw tight. 160 U-boats lost in 6 months, he whispers. We cannot sustain this. An aide ventures, Sir, the enemy's new weapons. They strike without warning. Dönitz sighs. Not weapons, ideas. And we have none left. He closes his notebook and walks out into the drizzle, listening to the echoing emptiness where engines once roared. Spring 1944, Atlantic convoy route. HMS Westcott, the first ship ever to fire the Hedgehog, escorts a convoy bound for Gibraltar. The crew moves with quiet efficiency. The sonar operator scans the depths. No contacts, sir. The captain nods. Let's keep it that way. For hours, the destroyer glides over the deep, her Hedgehog launcher standing silent at the bow, like a monument to a new kind of warfare. Precise, patient, unseen. That night, under a starlit sky, one of the younger sailors leans against the rail. Hard to believe, sir, he says to the chief petty officer beside him. All this peace from a mistake. The older man smiles faintly. Not a mistake, lad, just the right hands on the wrong bolt. When victory finally comes, the Battle of the Atlantic, once the Allies' greatest fear, is remembered as the campaign that turned on innovation, not numbers. For every radar ping, every sonar sweep, and every convoy that reached port, there was one unsung weapon that made it possible. A handful of steel tubes, born of curiosity and persistence. In the years after the war, the Hedgehog would inspire generations of anti-submarine weapons, from Squid to Limbo to the modern As-Rosé. Its principle, precision over power, would shape naval warfare for decades. But for Albert Chalmers, none of that matters. On the day peace is declared, he walks along the docks and listens to the seagulls over a quiet sea. Ships stretch to the horizon, unescorted, unafraid. He smiles and mutters to himself, "That'll do, Bert, that'll do." The Hedgehog, the weapon born from an accident, didn't just sink submarines. It ended the longest battle of the war.